Is your business truly sustainable? Well, if the thought of having to tackle a whole raft of sustainable development goals fills you with some trepidation, then you are by no means alone. Every business in the fresh produce industry at some point must face up to the challenge of improving their environmental footprint and sharpening their ethical credentials. And it's true that many simply don't know where to start. That's where experts like Richard Bonn come in. As co-founder of Aethr Associates, it's his job to advise fruit and vegetable companies on the steps they can take to become more sustainable. And in practice, that means things like climate risk assessments or carbon reduction. We spoke to him on an unseasonably grey and blustery day at Fruitnet's Festival of Fresh event in the UK. And he revealed some of his top tips for companies starting out on their journey towards a brighter and more sustainable future.
Richard Bonn, co-founder of a business called Aethr Associates. Aethr are set up to help and advise businesses on sustainability, all sustainability matters. We tend to kind of start at the strategy and then work down from there. We help businesses with climate risk assessments, with carbon, with business resilience. So yeah, it's quite a developing and diverse area that we work on.
Yeah. Now, as an Aethr Associates, you are across all of those sustainability challenges. There are, if I remember right, 17 sustainability development goals that have been set.
Yes.
You know them all inside out.
Intimately.
But when we go into the boardrooms of these fresh produce companies, when you go and talk to them, and they are right at the beginning of their sustainability journey, where do you start?
Where we start is helping businesses to prioritise, because there's so much potentially to do, but not any business is the same in how they need to prioritise. You've got across fresh produce and food, you've got different businesses like trading businesses or primary manufacturers or primary producers, and they've all got different challenges. So what we do is to help them to set out those challenges as a board. So we'll do workshops, we'll get the board into a room, we'll help them to work through that. We'll do something that's called a materiality assessment, help them to establish what's important to them, what's important to their stakeholders. By the end of it, we'll aim to have a collective and cohesive plan, and then we help them to deliver that plan. So that all the boards are engaged in that, and you get board consensus, but also you then start to look at, right, how can you communicate that? How can you make sure it's delivered effectively?
Understood. Now, if we think about fresh produce, and let's focus our attention on the European fresh produce business.
Yes.
What's the biggest sustainability challenge for a fruit supplier, for example, in Spain or in Italy or in Greece?
I think if you look at Southern Europe, then their biggest sustainability challenge is going to be around the environment, it's going to be around climate, it's going to be around water. That is all building up to become a major challenge. What we are seeing in some of the climate risk assessments that we're doing is that where businesses in the UK are sourcing produce from is going to become a big challenge, a big differentiator. It's going to become an ever greater problem. What we're also seeing is that obviously carbon footprinting, environmental emissions are also becoming a much bigger challenge, and that's coming back to the point about prioritisation, is which one do you prioritise? Well, for most businesses in the last 4 or 5 years, it's all been about economic sustainability. What they're now starting to wake up to is the fact that they're seeing the effects of a much stronger El Nino over the last 18 months, and what impact that can actually have on their ability to serve their customers, to maintain profits, to supply. What we're helping them to actually do is to look forward and say, well, what does 20 years hence actually look like when you're planting orchards, when you're sourcing, setting up supply strategies and things like that.
Let's give you another tester. Let's ask you, what's the biggest challenge for a fresh produce importer, say in the UK or in Germany, in one of those big markets? What do they have to think about first and foremost?
I think the biggest challenge for intermediaries or traders is, how do you get your supply base collectively to start reviewing their risk but also their environmental impact. It's going to become quite a task to understand what everybody's comparative carbon footprint is, what their water footprint is, what their environmental exposure or climate exposure is. Collating all of that data and then representing that to their customers, because the retailers are now starting to ask some fairly challenging and difficult questions on the matter. That is going to be one of the big challenges over the next few years.